After 5 years together, Amelia finally understood why Adrian refused to marry her. A little boy suddenly appeared in the restaurant, screaming as he picked up a glass and smashed it over Amelia's head. Adrian's first move was to crouch down, gently comforting the child in his arms who called him Daddy. The boy pointed at Amelia, crying as he asked Adrian if this wicked woman was his new stepmother. Adrian held him and said softly, "Of course not. I promised your mother I would never marry anyone else." As Amelia clutched her bleeding head and shakily stood up, wanting Adrian to take her to the hospital, he quickly scooped up the boy, covered his eyes, and said to her, "He's just a child. Don't hold it against him." Watching his retreating back, Amelia threw away the diamond ring she had planned to propose to Adrian with. Later, when he prepared a grand proposal with drones, Amelia simply showed him the engagement ring already on her finger. The proposal she had waited for in vain, someone else had made in his place. A scream shattered the romantic, syrupy atmosphere of the restaurant. Amelia's face was covered in streaks of bright red blood, the glaring crimson dripping from her forehead into her wide-open eyes. Before she could even process what had happened, Adrian, who was sitting across from her, had already shot up from his seat and swept the still wailing little boy into his arms. No one had noticed when the boy, who looked to be about 7 or 8, had entered. Not until he rushed to Amelia's table, grabbed a glass, and slammed it into her head. A delayed, sharp pain sent shudders through Amelia's body. The boy in Adrian's arms was still crying, pointing at the blood-soaked Amelia with boundless grievance. "Daddy, is this ugly woman my new stepmom? I don't want her to be my stepmom. I don't." The murmurs from the surrounding tables grew louder, but Amelia clearly heard Adrian's reply. "Of course not. I promised your mother I wouldn't get married again." "You won't have a stepmom." The blood seeping into her eyes stung. Amelia's heart felt as if it had been squeezed by a giant hand. She didn't know whether to be more shocked that her boyfriend of 5 years had been married and had a son, or more heartbroken that he had promised his ex-wife he would never remarry. A torrent of chaotic emotions washed over her teetering body, and her vision began to blur. Amelia could feel the warmth draining from her. She pushed herself up, using the table for support, and fixed her unfocused gaze on Adrian. "Adrian, my head hurts so much. Take me to." She hadn't even finished the word hospital before Adrian stood up, holding the boy. His first action was to cover the child's eyes. Then he strode quickly toward the exit, leaving only a single sentence behind. "Don't hold it against a child. I'll call Mrs. Davis to take you to the hospital." Amelia watched his back disappear into her blurry vision. An unstoppable wave of bitterness finally overwhelmed her crumbling consciousness. When she opened her eyes again, she was staring at the cold, white ceiling of a hospital room. It felt like several blenders were whirring inside her head. A throbbing, dizzying pain. Mrs. Davis saw she was awake and quickly helped her sit up, handing her a glass of water. "How did you get hurt?" "When I arrived, you were covered in blood. You scared me to death." Amelia sipped the water, the scenes from the restaurant flashing before her eyes. Tears fell silently into the cup. Amelia didn't know why she was crying. Maybe it was the pain. The wound hurt, but her heart hurt more. Just then, footsteps approached the door. Mrs. Davis paused. "Dr. Cole, you're here." At those words, Amelia's body jolted. She didn't look up. Adrian's steady voice followed. "Mrs. Davis, you can go home now. Thank you for your trouble." After Mrs. Davis left, the room was silent for a long time. So long that Amelia's neck began to ache from looking down. Adrian took the cup from her hands and held both of hers, his voice soft and gentle. "I'm sorry. Caleb is my son with my ex-wife. We divorced 7 years ago. I never told you because I didn't think they would ever interfere with our lives." Adrian's hands held a warmth Amelia had always craved. Under its touch, her defenses crumbled, avoiding the wound on her head. Adrian pulled the softly sobbing Amelia into his arms, comforting her gently. He stayed in the room for a long time, but neither of them brought up the child. Amelia didn't know why she felt such a sense of dread, why she didn't dare ask Adrian about what he had told the boy in the restaurant. "I promised your mother I wouldn't marry anyone else." Eventually, Adrian was called away by a colleague. Amelia stared at her handbag on the bedside table. Inside was a man's ring she had prepared long ago. Today, at a restaurant she had carefully chosen, she had planned to propose to her boyfriend of 5 years. Now, Amelia finally understood why the mature and stable Adrian, who had lived with her like a husband for so long, had never once mentioned marriage. It was because he had already made a promise to someone else. Amelia opened a locked photo album on her phone. There were 5 pictures inside. All were of her and Adrian, one for each year. She had planned to use these photos at their wedding. Now, they just seemed ironic. The most recent one was taken just last week on her birthday. That day, Amelia's birthday wish had been to be with Adrian forever. She stared at the photo for a long time, but couldn't bring herself to delete it. At least he's still by my side, she told herself. At least we should give each other a chance. Amelia wasn't sure who she was trying to convince. The cut on her head wasn't serious, but she had lost a lot of blood and needed to stay in the hospital for a few days. Whenever Adrian had free time, he would rush to her room. The nurses often teased her, and their words made Amelia blush, feeling as though the hole in her heart had healed a little. But she knew it was just patched over with paper. A strong gust of wind would expose it again. One day, Adrian brought the little boy, Caleb, to her room. The boy's face was tear-streaked, and Adrian was gripping his hand tightly. Things had been too chaotic that day for Amelia to get a good look at Caleb's face. Now she saw that his features strongly resembled Adrian's, but only resembled. Adrian had a gentle, refined air, while the boy's young face held a hint of aggression that didn't match his age. Adrian pushed Caleb in front of Amelia's bed, his tone stern. Apologize properly to the auntie. Amelia, who had little experience with children, sat awkwardly on the bed, looking at the boy who shared Adrian's face. Caleb wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and mumbled, "Auntie, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have hit you with the glass." Amelia reflexively waved her hand. And then, she saw the boy's eyes as he looked up. They were filled with undisguised hatred. The look in his eyes terrified her. She didn't hear anything Adrian said after that. It wasn't until Adrian left with the child and a familiar nurse, Katie, came in that she snapped out of it. "Amelia, you can be discharged tomorrow afternoon. You're recovering quickly. Luckily the cut on your forehead isn't too big, so it won't leave a scar. But you still need to be careful. Come back in 3 days to have the stitches removed." Amelia came to her senses and smiled, thanking Nurse Katie. What she didn't expect was that when Adrian brought her home from the hospital, she would find Caleb watching TV on the sofa. Amelia froze at the doorway. Adrian put down his things on the shoe cabinet and turned to look at her. "What's wrong, Amelia? Didn't I tell you yesterday that Caleb would be staying with us for a while?" Before he finished speaking, Amelia's favorite cushion flew from the sofa and landed at her feet. The child's high-pitched voice rang out. "This isn't your home, you ugly woman. This is my daddy's house. Get out. I won't let you in." Adrian bent down, picked up the cushion, and strode inside, grabbing the still screaming Caleb. "This is my home with Auntie Amelia. You are the guest. You promised you would behave. That's the only reason I let you stay. If you keep causing trouble, I'll send you back to your mother." At this, Caleb suddenly quieted down. He lowered his head, and tears splashed onto the wooden floor. "You promised I'd be your only child. You promised Mom you wouldn't get married. Are you abandoning me now, Daddy?" The anger that had just risen on Adrian's face dissipated. He pulled the trembling, sobbing Caleb into his arms and comforted him. "Of course not. You will always be Daddy's only child." Amelia, still standing at the door, felt as if she had been forgotten by the world. She picked up her luggage and silently walked into the bedroom. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the father and son embracing in the living room. She couldn't help but imagine what their family of 3 must have looked like. From Caleb's face, she could guess that his mother must have been a beautiful woman. So why did they separate? This self-torturing thought made her chest feel tight. That night, Amelia slept alone. Adrian never set foot in the bedroom. She tossed and turned, unable to understand why Caleb was so hostile towards her. They had never even met. Could a child's possessiveness of his father lead to such dangerous behavior? And that chilling look in his eyes. The next morning, Amelia woke up late. There was a message from Adrian on her phone. "Amelia, I'm off to work. I've dropped Caleb at school. His mother has an urgent matter, so he'll be staying for a week. I know it's a lot to ask. Wait for me to come home and cook dinner tonight. Amelia sighed. It was this gentleness of Adrian's that made her unable to let go. She was now lost in a deep confusion. She knew she wanted to spend her life with Adrian. She had even decided to be the one to propose. But now, before she could take that step, she had been left with a bleeding head. Amelia was starting to feel afraid. After much thought, she decided to have a serious talk with Adrian after Caleb left. If he couldn't give her what she wanted, she would let him go without hesitation. In the afternoon, Adrian called. He had an emergency surgery and asked if she could pick Caleb up from school. Amelia hesitated, but then decided there was no need to argue with an 80-year-old child. She agreed. When she arrived at the elementary school, many parents were already waiting. Soon, a teacher led a line of little children out. Amelia found herself thinking that if she and Adrian had a child, they would be just as cute. But then she remembered his words. Daddy will only have you as his child. The smile that had just formed on her lips vanished. When Caleb came out, he was clearly unhappy to see her. A friend of his asked who was picking him up today. Amelia clearly heard his reply. The wicked woman who stole my daddy. Such words were obviously not a child's own thoughts. But Amelia was reluctant to assume the worst of Caleb's mother, whom she had never met. She let out a long breath, silently repeating to herself, "He's just a child. He's just a child," and forced a smile. After getting Caleb into the car, Amelia sighed in relief, afraid he would start shouting in public like he had before. But she soon realized her relief was premature. The road leading into their neighborhood was congested. Amelia slowed down and stopped in the queue. At that moment, Caleb, sitting in the back, suddenly opened the car door, jumped out, and rolled on the ground, wailing loudly. Amelia was terrified. She quickly got out of the car to check on him. But as soon as she approached, Caleb started screaming, "Please stop hitting me. I won't say bad things again." A crowd had already gathered. Caleb sat on the ground, scooting backward. Several older women began to point fingers at Amelia. She was at a complete loss. She wanted to explain, but what could she say to a crowd that knew nothing? She tried to help Caleb up, but he just screamed louder whenever she got close, as if she had really done something to him. Years of experience as a journalist in dangerous situations were useless in helping her resolve this. She quickly took out her phone and called Adrian. "Adrian, where are you?" "We're at the intersection at the entrance to the neighborhood." Caleb suddenly jumped out of the car and is on the ground crying and screaming. "I can't control him." Adrian's voice was strained. He was clearly on his way. He gently comforted the tearful Amelia. "Don't worry. I'm almost there. 3 minutes at most." His words brought a moment of relief. She turned to look at Caleb, who was still refusing to get up. An older woman, seeing her movement, spoke up self-righteously. "What kind of mother are you? The child is sitting on the ground and you're just standing there. Can't you see you're holding up all this traffic?" Amelia was about to explain when Caleb, half laying on the ground, suddenly screamed again. "She's not my mom. She's the slut who seduced my daddy." Amelia could never have imagined that words like seduce and slut could come from the mouth of a child not yet 8 years old. As she was being pierced by the varied gazes of the crowd, Adrian finally appeared. He pushed through the people, scooped up Caleb from the ground, and turned to the pale-faced Amelia. "Get in the car. We'll talk at home." With trembling fingers, Amelia opened the car door. She didn't recover from the crowd stares until they were back in the living room. Caleb was remarkably well-behaved in Adrian's arms, his body still trembling slightly, as if he had been through a great ordeal. Adrian put Caleb in the guest room. Mrs. Davis, who had been coming to clean and cook more often because of Caleb, had been leaving early every day. Amelia sat in the living room, trying to calm herself. A moment later, Adrian came out of the guest room. He walked over and hugged her, whispering in her ear, "I'm sorry, Amelia. I shouldn't have made you face Caleb alone. He has a severe psychological disorder. Outbursts of rage are common. I thought his mother taking him abroad for treatment a few years ago would have helped. I didn't expect this. Don't worry. What happened today won't happen again." Hearing that the child was ill, Amelia's aversion to Caleb softened slightly. Perhaps he really couldn't control his emotions and actions. In the end, Amelia didn't repeat to Adrian the things Caleb had said outside. She had interviewed many parents of children with severe mental illnesses. The helplessness and pain in their eyes were unforgettable. That night, Adrian still did not return to the bedroom. The next morning, she ran into Caleb eating in the dining room. Amelia composed herself and greeted him with a smile. To her surprise, Caleb looked terrified at the sight of her. He even dropped his chopsticks. He immediately knelt to pick them up, murmuring, I'm sorry. Amelia didn't understand his behavior and frowned. Just then, Adrian rushed out and pulled Caleb up. He glanced at Amelia, his expression grim. He let out a long breath, his voice strained. When I get home from work, we need to talk. Amelia was baffled by Adrian's expression. She decided to cancel her leave and go to work. A busy day at work did keep her mind off things. It wasn't until she was almost home that she remembered what Adrian had said that morning. She entered to find only Mrs. Davis busy in the kitchen. She said Adrian had taken Caleb out to eat. Amelia said nothing, ignoring Mrs. Davis' hesitant expression. She ate her dinner in silence. As dusk settled, Adrian and Caleb returned. Amelia had already retreated to the bedroom. Since Caleb's arrival, she had felt more and more like an outsider. The resolve in her heart was beginning to crack. But Adrian hadn't noticed. He entered the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, watching her work on a manuscript. After a pause, he said, I talked to Caleb last night. I know his attitude towards you has been terrible, but he's a child with a mental illness. You shouldn't have said that to him. He's very sensitive. Amelia turned to him, bewildered. What did I say to him? A look of disapproval crossed Adrian's face. Telling an adult to get lost might be one thing, but Caleb is different. I hope you can be more mindful. Amelia's voice rose in agitation. I didn't. Adrian stood up and turned to leave. I just hope you can pay more attention to Caleb's state next time. I won't ask too much of you. The soft click of the bedroom door felt like a resounding slap, leaving Amelia stunned. After a moment, she realized he didn't believe her. He hadn't even tried to verify it with her. He had already judged her guilty. A storm of emotions surged in her chest. The perfect partner she had lived with for 5 years seemed to have changed, letting the sting in her nose take over. She opened the album named Us. Inside was a photo. It was from their 3rd year together. That year, Amelia had been covering an exposé. After the report was published, she was maliciously accused of being a paid smear campaigner for a rival company. The entire internet was lambasting her as a corrupt journalist. At that time, Adrian had chosen to believe her without hesitation. Even though he knew nothing about the situation, he had said, as a boyfriend, isn't trusting your girlfriend the most basic thing, no matter what happens? But today, he had broken that promise himself, leaving no room for doubt. A tear fell on their smiling faces. Amelia permanently deleted the photo. That night, she made a decision. When she could bear to delete all 5 photos, she would leave Adrian's life forever. Then, she began to pack her things. She was keenly aware that living with Caleb would bring too many uncertainties. As an outsider, it would be difficult for her to coexist with this child who shared Adrian's blood. She didn't want to make things difficult for Adrian, nor for herself. She left in the middle of the night, silently. Before closing the door, she glanced back at the house she had lived in for 3 years, hoping she might one day return. Amelia moved back to her small apartment, which was close to her office. She had moved to that other place, with a commute of over 2 hours, just to live with Adrian. She fell asleep quickly and slept surprisingly well. The next morning, on her way to work, she ran into her neighbor, Ethan. He was the boy next door she had watched grow up, 5 years her junior. After he graduated, their parents had bought them adjacent apartments, making them neighbors again. Ethan was surprised to see her, a clear look of joy on his face. Amelia, you moved back. Did you and Dr. Cole break up? Amelia couldn't help but laugh. She stood on her toes and ruffled his hair. Call me sis. I'm just staying here for a while. She ignored his second question. He had asked it every time they had met for the past few years. They chatted and laughed all the way out. It was a welcome relief after several days of feeling stifled. But the happiness didn't last. Adrian didn't contact her all day. Her colleagues teased her several times for staring at her phone. A bitter feeling washed over her. She had to wonder where she stood in his heart. This constant state of suspicion and panic was agonizing. The day passed like that. Before she knew it, she was on her way back to Adrian's place. Sitting in her car, she gave a bitter smile. Maybe he hadn't even noticed she had moved out. In that moment of distraction, a large truck slammed into her from behind. The immense force threw her against the airbag. The taste of blood filled her mouth as her vision, once again, turned red. A ringing in her ears was followed by a moment of clarity. She fumbled for her phone and called for an ambulance. A sharp pain shot through her chest. Forcing herself to stay conscious, she dialed Adrian's number. "Adrian, I've been in a car accident. It's serious. I'm on the Truman Expressway." The voice on the other end was choppy, but she still heard him. Adrian sounded frantic. "Caleb has a fever. I can't leave. I'll text you the insurance company's number. You should contact them yourself. I have to go." The dial tone seemed to sync with her heartbeat, a frantic rhythm that left her breathless. Her phone vibrated again, filled with a desperate hope. She answered. Ethan's energetic voice came through. "Amelia, what time do you get off work? Want to come over for dinner?" An indescribable bitterness overwhelmed the physical pain. She started gasping for air. Ethan immediately noticed something was wrong. "What's wrong? Amelia, where are you? Did something happen?" In the moment before she blacked out, she heard his voice. "I'm on my way. Don't worry. You'll be okay." Waking up in the hospital again, the white ceiling was becoming a familiar sight. There was a rustling sound beside her. It was Ethan. He was sitting on a stool, frowning as he flipped through her medical charts. When he saw she was awake, he fumbled, asking if she wanted water, if she felt any discomfort. Amelia had a broken rib. Other than that, she was fine. But Ethan's concern, like that of a family member, was heartwarming. She never thought that one day, the one by her hospital bed, would be this little brother, who seemed so young and unreliable, and the man she thought she could entrust her life to had chosen to abandon her. Time and time again. How ridiculous. While Ethan was out buying food, Amelia opened her phone with a glimmer of desperate hope. No message from Adrian. It was morning now. For the entire night after learning she had been in an accident, he hadn't even called once. The image of his retreating back from the day Caleb had smashed her head replayed in her mind. Ignoring her tear-blurred vision, she opened us again and deleted a photo of them by a flower bed. It was from when she had won her first journalism award. Adrian had been there with her. He had canceled an important medical conference to be there, vowing that she would always be his first choice. Now, he had broken another promise. He hadn't just not chosen her, he had abandoned her. Looking at the 3 remaining photos, a dull ache spread through her chest. Though she was reluctant, she knew this was a necessary process. Adrian contacted Amelia 3 days later. Ethan had been the one taking care of her all this time. He was in his final year of graduate school. She could see he was overwhelmed, but he still came to see her every day, sometimes even bringing food he had cooked himself. As for Adrian's days of silence, Amelia had gone from extreme disappointment to a state of acceptance. So when she received his call, her tone was surprisingly calm. Adrian sounded exhausted. "Amelia, how long are you going to keep this up with me? How old are you? Running away from home. I'm already so tired. Can you be a little more considerate? When did you become so inconsiderate?" Amelia, who hadn't said a word, was met with this barrage of accusations. Her emotion wasn't grievance, but a sense of absurdity. "Adrian, you don't ask where I've been. You just start with accusations. I was in a car accident. I almost died. I called you and you told me to call the insurance company. How much more considerate do you want me to be? Go be with your son." Before Adrian could reply, she hung up. She turned to see Ethan standing there. Her breathing was still a little rapid from the emotional outburst. Meeting Ethan's worried gaze, Amelia, still fuming, told him everything. Ethan was even angrier than she was. They talked for a long time, and Amelia's mood instantly improved. Adrian called her many times that day, but she didn't answer. To her surprise, he was in her hospital room the next morning. He looked haggard, with obvious dark circles under his eyes. Amelia didn't quite know how to face him, so she pretended not to see him. Adrian walked over and sat by her bed, taking her hand and placing it against his cheek. "Amelia, I'm so sorry. Caleb's fever was very high that day. I didn't want anything to happen to him while he was with me. I'm sorry. I haven't balanced things well lately. I've never spent much time with him. I don't know how to handle it. I know you've been wrong these past few days. It's my fault. I'm sorry. Looking at his guilty expression, Amelia felt a sense of irony. Why do men always apologize and beg for forgiveness after the fact? Instead of addressing the root of the problem, she leaned against his chest, hiding the sarcasm in her eyes and the turmoil in her heart. Adrian and Amelia talked for a long time that day. He decided to send Caleb back to his mother as soon as possible and hoped Amelia would move back in. Ethan arrived after Adrian had left. When Amelia told him they had reconciled, Ethan's expression soured, but he didn't say anything. Amelia was discharged after a few days to recover at home. Her recovery would take about 2 months, so she applied for remote work. In the second week, Adrian brought her back home, saying Caleb was gone. Amelia entered the living room. Everything was arranged exactly as it had been before Caleb's arrival, as if the turmoil of the past few weeks had never happened. One day, Amelia decided to go for a walk. After being inactive for so long, her bones felt soft. To her surprise, she saw Caleb at the door. The little boy was carrying a backpack, standing next to a woman from the neighborhood committee. Amelia recognized her from a few times she had collected property management fees. The moment she saw Caleb, Amelia felt a primal fear. The physical and psychological trauma this child had inflicted on her was deeply ingrained. Caleb turned, saw her, and ran over, dropping to his knees by her legs. He pleaded through tears, "Auntie Amelia, please don't make Daddy send me away. I want to be with my daddy, please." Meeting the committee woman's disdainful gaze, Amelia felt a profound sense of powerlessness. Just then, Adrian's voice came from the direction of the elevator. "Caleb." Amelia turned to see him jogging toward them. At that moment, a sharp pain shot through her calf. She instinctively flinched and shook her leg. Caleb, still clutching her leg, seemed to be thrown with great force against the wall. Amelia clearly saw the small blade in Caleb's palm and the cruel smile on his young face. Caleb's cries echoed through the hallway, along with the piercing, sarcastic comments from the committee woman. Adrian rushed to Caleb's side and scooped him up in a panic. He gave Amelia a complicated look. Amelia stood there, not knowing what to do, or what she could do. Adrian took Caleb to the hospital and didn't return that night. Amelia suddenly realized she couldn't even muster the feeling of being wronged anymore. She just felt tired, wondering why she had to endure all this just for being in a relationship with Adrian. Adrian returned late that night. Amelia hadn't gone to bed. She sat waiting in the dark living room. He was startled when he came in. As the light flicked on, Amelia, her face blank, stared at the dark TV screen and stated, "I didn't kick him. He cut my leg with a small knife." She pulled up her nightgown to reveal a bloody gash on her calf, then returned to the bedroom without waiting for his reaction. As she expected, he didn't follow her. It was an indescribable feeling. Adrian seemed to be drifting further and further away. Flipping through us, she deleted a candid photo a colleague had taken of their first meeting. Amelia had been injured by an agitated participant during an interview, and she had fallen for Adrian at first sight in the hospital. Now, he seemed to have lost that magnetic pull. The initial spark had faded. Regarding Amelia moving back in, Ethan was thrilled. This time, he asked again, "Did you and Dr. Cole break up?" This time, Amelia didn't ignore the question. She paused, then replied faintly, "Soon, I think." Ethan saw the look on her face and didn't press further. Life went on, and Amelia was busy working from home. Adrian called a few times. She answered. She wouldn't be the one to initiate the breakup until every photo in us was gone, whether it was for the sake of ritual or something else. Adrian acted as if nothing had happened, still sending messages of concern, taking her for checkups, an avoidant kind of interaction. Amelia said nothing. She couldn't muster much emotion towards his attitude now. Perhaps she knew it would all be over soon. She just didn't expect it to be so soon. It was Adrian's 35th birthday. In previous years, Amelia would have started preparing long in advance, putting a lot of thought into his gift. But this year, she didn't want to. Adrian noticed something was off with her but didn't say anything. He just booked a table at a restaurant she liked. They maintained a final, unspoken silence. Not long after she arrived at the restaurant, a woman suddenly appeared with Caleb. It was, without a doubt, Caleb's mother. The woman was slender, wearing a velvet long dress that complemented her wavy hair. Adrian showed no expression upon seeing her. "Why are you here?" he asked, a hint of weariness in his voice. The woman pulled out a chair for Caleb and smoothed her hair. "What? After all these years, I can't even celebrate your birthday with you." Then she turned to Amelia. "Hello. I'm Isla, Adrian's ex-wife." The blatant provocation in Isla's eyes made Amelia uncomfortable, but she still extended her hand to shake Isla's. The meal was incredibly awkward. Amelia felt like an audience member to their family of 3. After they finally finished eating, Adrian took Caleb to the restroom. Amelia and Isla waited outside. Just as Amelia was about to leave, Isla suddenly spoke. "Adrian will never marry you. He promised me he wouldn't remarry. Sooner or later, he'll come back to me." Amelia was about to reply when Isla suddenly grabbed her hand and whispered with a low laugh, "Let's see who he chooses, shall we?" With that, she forcefully pressed Amelia's hand onto her own shoulder and leaned backward. Behind them was a flight of about 20 stairs. Caught off guard, Amelia was pulled down the stairs with Isla. Her vision spun, and a sharp pain shot through her body. She heard Caleb scream, "Daddy! Save Mommy! Hurry! Save Mommy!" Lying on the ground, having lost almost all control of her body, Amelia managed to open her eyes and watched as Adrian ran past her to help Isla up. A single tear slid down her stinging cheek and into the corner of her mouth, bitter and astringent. Her notiathieled rib ached until it was numb. The surrounding sounds were a chaotic mess, but Amelia could only hear her own heartbeat, a sound that seemed to be growing more and more distant. In the final second before she blacked out, she saw Adrian's back as he held Isla. Waking up in the hospital, Amelia managed a weak smile at Ethan, who was sitting beside her, and looked up at the familiar white ceiling. "I could get a membership card for this place." Ethan said nothing, a heavy aura surrounding him. He turned and left the room to find a doctor. The room was suddenly filled with the sound of Amelia's breathing alone. The smile on her face slowly faded. The moments of being abandoned by Adrian replayed in her aching mind. The pain throughout her body couldn't mask the bitterness in her heart. Isla's triumphant expression flashed before her eyes, a piercing image. As she was lost in her thoughts, a commotion erupted outside the room. Ethan's angry voice was clear. "Adrian, you bastard. You dare to show your face here. Amelia is practically on her deathbed because of you. Can you just stay away from her with your ex-wife and son? Are you trying to have it both ways?" Then came a jumble of sounds. People trying to break up a fight. Amelia couldn't get out of bed and could only look anxiously towards the door. A moment later, a slightly disheveled Ethan pushed the door open. His hair was messy, and there was a bruise on the corner of his mouth. He looked up and met Amelia's worried gaze. He looked down guiltily and came to sit beside her. Amelia didn't say much. Instead, she asked for her phone and checked for work messages. After a moment's hesitation, she opened us. From the 2 remaining photos, she chose one and deleted it without a second thought. Then she stared at the last photo. Maybe I should just delete it too. In the end, she put it down, telling herself, one last time. After convincing Ethan to go home, Amelia called Adrian. "If you're free tomorrow, come over. We need to talk." With that, she hung up. Her emotions were strangely calm. She lay in bed, quietly thinking. This time, she was in a different hospital, not the one where Adrian worked. The lack of familiar faces was a relief. When Adrian walked into the room, Amelia was surprised. He wasn't wearing his white coat, and his hair was still neat, but the bruises on his face were jarring, disrupting his usual refined appearance. When he sat by her bed, Amelia first apologized on Ethan's behalf. After all, it was her own family who had caused the trouble. Adrian shook his head, his gaze complex. He wouldn't look her in the eye. Was it reluctance or fear? His gaze was unfocused, his tone flat. "In the one who should be sorry, ever since Caleb appeared. You've been getting hurt. It's my fault. I didn't take care of you." Amelia looked at his tired eyes and found it hard to feel any sympathy, only a little pity. She looked away and asked, "Why is Caleb so hostile towards me?" Adrian paused for a long time, then let out a long breath. Caleb's mother and I knew each other since we were kids. We got together in college and married soon after. During her pregnancy, we discovered many irreconcilable differences, not just personality clashes. She became paranoid and hysterical. Our lives were a mess. Our parents also felt we weren't suited for each other and took her away. We met again the day Caleb was born. I was waiting outside the delivery room with my parents when the doctor called me in. He said she was uncooperative and insisted on seeing me. I went in and saw her, pale and lying there. That day, she was like a demon. She grabbed my hand and forced me to swear that I would never marry anyone else, never have another child. She said if I didn't agree, she and the baby would die on the operating table. So I promised. Adrian's voice trembled. Amelia still didn't look at him. The room was silent except for their breathing. Amelia said nothing. She didn't know what to say. Adrian suddenly took her hand. Amelia, give me some time. I'll handle it. Amelia gently pulled her hand away, closed her eyes wearily, and said softly, you should go. Let's both cool down for a while. The soft click of the door closing sent ripples through her heart. A tangle of complex emotions surged. A barely audible whisper filled the room. Then what about me? What am I supposed to do? When Ethan came that night, he was carrying a thermos of soup he had made. The bruise on his mouth was more pronounced. Amelia looked at him with a hint of reproach. He smiled guiltily, which pulled at the cut on his lip, contorting his face in pain. He gently helped her sit up, his voice apologetic. I was impulsive yesterday. I just couldn't hold it in. But you have to admit, every time you see him, you get hurt. And not just minor injuries. You weren't hurt this often when you were reporting from disaster zones. How could I not be angry? And Adrian acts like nothing's wrong. He can't even be bothered to take you to the hospital. This time, if the doctor hadn't answered your phone when I called, I wouldn't have known where to find you. Listening to Ethan's increasingly angry rant, Amelia smiled helplessly. His concern was direct and passionate, hard not to be moved by. Her rib was injured again. The last injury hadn't fully healed. She didn't know how long she would be bedridden this time. As she was staring blankly, she suddenly got a call from a colleague. She thought it was an emergency, but her colleague's voice was hesitant. Amelia, are you feeling okay? Amelia was puzzled. I'm fine. Just can't get out of bed right now. Is there an urgent assignment? No, not an assignment. Her colleague replied quickly. It's just the office received an anonymous letter about you. It says you were a homewrecker, that you broke up someone's marriage and caused their child to develop a severe psychological disorder. The management wants to talk to you. Amelia knew almost instantly who was behind this. After thanking her colleague, a surge of anger rose within her. She called Adrian. He answered quickly. She got straight to the point. Send me your divorce certificate. Isla sent a letter to my office accusing me of breaking up your marriage and causing your son's mental illness. Adrian, I've put up with their bullying because of you, but my career is my bottom line. If she pulls another stunt like this, I will sue her for pushing me down the stairs. With that, she hung up and started drafting an email to her boss. Adrian's message came quickly. Besides a photo of their divorce certificate, there was a dry "I'm sorry." Amelia had no time for sentimentality. She clearly laid out the timeline, attached the photo from Adrian, and called her boss to explain the situation. Her boss, a kind woman in her 50s, listened patiently. She sighed. Amelia, the company won't interfere in your personal life, but you need to handle this properly. You're a rising star in this industry. You can't let some baseless rumors about your character ruin your career. After a few more words with her boss, Amelia hung up, her feelings complicated. A little while later, her phone chimed again. A multimedia message from an unknown number. A photo of Isla in a hospital bed, with Adrian feeding her soup. Amelia stared at the photo for a long time. She realized that seeing it stirred no emotion in her. Sadness, grievance, even heartache seemed to be gone. She didn't know if she was numb or just completely disappointed in Adrian. Amelia's recovery went well this time. After 2 weeks in the hospital, she was able to go home to recuperate. Ethan took her home. He even wanted to hire a live-in caregiver for her, but she talked him out of it. Since that one "I'm sorry," Adrian had not contacted her again. Amelia suddenly remembered that in their 5 years together, every time they had a Cold War, She was the one who made the first move, who apologized to make up. Adrian always seemed to be the one in the superior position, magnanimously forgiving her, calmly accepting her every concession. The unknown number would periodically send her photos, sometimes of Isla and Adrian together, sometimes of their family of 3. Amelia didn't reply or block the number. She didn't quite understand Isla. If she loved Adrian so much, why did she agree to divorce him in the first place? Why not just keep him by her side? To agree to a divorce, but not allow him to remarry, only to reappear years later acting like the rightful wife. What was her goal? In the second week of her recovery at home, Adrian came to her apartment. Amelia hesitated at the door but eventually let him in. He had brought her favorite pastries. The old shop was in the next city over, a hassle to get to. Looking at the pastry box, a pang of sadness hit her. How had they come to this? Adrian sat down, his expression calm, as if nothing had happened. He started talking about what he had been busy with. Amelia, sitting across from him, interrupted. Do you still want to be with me? Adrian was stunned. He looked into her eyes, then quickly looked away. Of course. Amelia, I told you. Just give me some time. Amelia opened the text messages on her phone and showed them to him. Give you time to be with your ex-wife and son. Is that it? Adrian, I like you, but not enough to lose all my dignity. Today, I'm called a homewrecker. Tomorrow, I'll be called your mistress. Adrian, if you can't make a clean break with your ex-wife, you shouldn't have gotten involved with me in the first place. Tears streamed silently down her face, dripping onto the floor. Adrian's hands, resting on his knees, clenched into fists. That's not it. Amelia, I just don't want to hurt her. She risked her life to give me Caleb. Her mental state isn't good. I can't provoke her any further. Amelia grabbed a tissue and wiped her face, trying to suppress the sob in her voice. You don't want to hurt her, so you hurt me instead. Do I just deserve this? Adrian said nothing, his lips pressed tightly together, his brow furrowed in a look of immense conflict. Amelia suddenly stood up, grabbed a box, and sat back down across from him. The day Caleb showed up, I was planning to propose to you. You never brought up marriage, so I was going to take the first step. But I never expected to end up with a bleeding head and a sudden son. She stared at the box containing a pair of rings, took a deep breath, and said, Adrian, will you marry me? Answer me now, or we break up. Their eyes met. A flicker of struggle passed through Adrian's eyes before he looked away and lowered his head. I'm sorry, Amelia. She let out a soft, low laugh, stood up, took the ring box, and threw it out the living room window. Outside was a man-made lake. The box was light, disappearing silently into the thick night. Amelia turned back to him with a smile. It's okay. From today on, there's nothing between us. Don't suggest being friends. I have no interest in being friends with an ex. And remember to tell your ex-wife she won. Tell her to stop bothering me. You can go now. She never took her eyes off him. This was their ending, and she wanted to remember it clearly. Adrian stood up, swaying slightly. He gave her one last, deep look and walked to the door. As he opened it, he said without turning back, I'm sorry. Then the door closed. Her vision was completely blurred by tears. The air around her was silent. She couldn't even hear her own breathing. Amelia didn't know why she was crying. His refusal was expected. This was the outcome she had anticipated. He had abandoned her so many times. This was the last time. She thought she could accept it calmly. But the tears still flowed, and her heart still ached. She didn't know how long Adrian had been gone. She stood there, in the same position. A knock on the door made her sway. She slowly moved her stiff legs. When she opened the door, Ethan was there with takeout, a smile on his face that immediately turned to concern when he saw her. Amelia, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Are you not feeling well? She shook her head, a little unsteady. Ethan helped her to the sofa. She was still in a daze. Under his worried gaze, she said numbly, Adrian and I broke up. We really broke up. Ethan didn't reply. He could feel the oppressive sadness surrounding her, although he had always wanted them to break up. Seeing her like this, he didn't know how to comfort her. Watching her trembling shoulders, he gently patted her back, a complex look in his eyes and a deeper layer of disgust for Adrian in his heart. Every time he saw Adrian's hypocritical face, he had the urge to punch him. Amelia was the person he had cherished since he was a child. Adrian had won her so easily, yet he hadn't treasured her. The first time she told him about Adrian's child and ex-wife, Ethan had been so angry he couldn't sleep all night. Now that they had finally broken up, he felt an indescribable sadness. That night, Ethan stayed with her for a long time. Neither of them spoke. They just sat quietly on the sofa until she fell asleep. He covered her with a blanket, stood beside her for a long while, and then left quietly. Amelia's sleep was restless. She couldn't remember what she dreamed, but she felt incredibly tired. When she woke up, she sat on the sofa for a long time. It was as if she was only just remembering what had happened last night. Her eyes ached, too sore to open. She found her phone. After dealing with a few work messages, she naturally opened Us, the album with only one photo left. Her mind was blank, but with a firm resolve, she deleted the last photo, and the album along with it disappeared from her phone. Only then did she truly realize that the relationship she had maintained for 5 years was completely over. Amelia was down for 2 days. During that time, whenever Ethan had a free moment, he would come over, cook for her, and watch movies with her. She had sensed his feelings for a long time, but back then, he was young, and she had dismissed it as a teenage crush, something that would fade as he grew up and met more people. She never expected him to hold on for so many years. During the 5 years she was with Adrian, Ethan rarely appeared. He maintained a perfect distance, never making her feel awkward. The fight with Adrian at the hospital was the most impulsive thing he had ever done. After 2 weeks of moping, Amelia threw all her energy into her work. In preparation for a summary meeting, she realized she had left a folder of work documents at Adrian's house. After a moment's hesitation, she messaged him. He gave her the passcode and told her to get it herself. Their conversation was mundane, like that between casual friends. Looking at his reply, Amelia laughed at herself. It seemed she was the only one who couldn't let go. She specifically chose a time when Adrian would be at work to avoid an unnecessary encounter. But she didn't expect to run into Isla at the door. Isla was holding a grocery bag, about to open the door. Seeing Amelia, a triumphant look crossed her face. A few women from the neighborhood committee were walking down the hall toward them. Isla suddenly spoke. "Miss, what brings you here? Didn't Adrian already break up with you?" Looking at Isla's utterly detestable face, Amelia replied in an even louder voice. "If an ex-wife from 8 or 9 years ago can live here, why can't I come to my ex-boyfriend's house to pick something up? Our management saw that anonymous letter you sent accusing me of breaking up your marriage. Luckily, Adrian sent me your divorce certificate, but I suggest you don't use such tactics again. If you want to get back together, that's between you two. If Adrian doesn't want you, it has nothing to do with me. And stop harassing me with photos. Otherwise, I can easily use the surveillance footage to sue you for deliberately pushing me down the stairs." With that, Amelia keyed in the passcode in front of Isla, grabbed the folder from the shoe cabinet, and left. Isla stood at the door, frozen. The chatter of the committee women was audible in the hallway. One of them, whom Amelia recognized, even followed her down the stairs, striking up a conversation as if they were old friends. "Amelia, did you and Dr. Cole break up?" Amelia nodded. Because of Caleb. The neighborhood women had been rather critical of her, often making sarcastic remarks. The woman pointed upstairs. "Is that Dr. Cole's ex-wife? And the little boy is their child?" Amelia nodded again, not wanting to say more. But the woman continued to mutter to herself. Just a few days ago she was telling everyone she was Dr. Cole's wife. She doesn't seem right in the head. Always accusing people of seducing her husband. Is he even your husband? Just babbling nonsense all day. Amelia didn't engage and quickly walked away. This was likely the last time she would ever come to this neighborhood. That night, Adrian messaged her again, asking if she got the documents, followed by some casual chat. Amelia wanted to ask why Isla was at his house, but she held back. It was over. She had no right to ask. Her ribs had mostly healed, and she was back to working at the office. Many people there knew about the anonymous letter. They had known she and Adrian were together for years, so the letter had little effect on her. In fact, they felt indignant on her behalf, saying what bad luck it was to run into someone like that. As for Adrian, he had been acting strangely lately. constantly messaging and calling her about nothing in particular, just asking about her health. Amelia didn't understand what he was trying to do. After a few calls, she stopped answering and rarely replied to his messages. She knew she couldn't get stuck in this quagmire of a relationship any longer. Her busy work schedule distracted her, and she hadn't thought about Adrian in a long time. He seemed to have truly disappeared from her life, as if he had never been there at all, until they met again. She was assigned to interview an old professor who was hospitalized, and the hospital was where Adrian worked. She considered asking a colleague to take her place, but everyone was busy. As she was about to enter the hospital, she tried to reassure herself. There were so many people in the hospital, and she wasn't even going to his department. They probably wouldn't run into each other. The interview went smoothly, but just as she was packing up her equipment, she heard a familiar voice. Amelia. A hand grabbed her arm. She had to turn and face him. They hadn't seen each other in over a month. He seemed to have lost some weight. She controlled her urge to scrutinize him, told her colleagues to go on ahead, and offered him a polite smile. Dr. Cole. Long time no see. A flicker of pain crossed his eyes. His fingers tightened, hurting her arm. Seeing her frown, he released her as if shocked. Sorry. Can we talk? She hesitated, then walked with him to the hospital's central garden. There weren't many people there, just a few patients resting on benches. They stood facing each other. His tone was cautious. Amelia, have you been busy with work? How's your rib? She didn't look at his face, her gaze fixed on a plant by his feet. It's fine. What did you want to talk about? He was silent for a long moment, so long that she couldn't help but look up. His lips were pressed tightly together, a sign of his nervousness. Suddenly, he took her hand. Amelia, can we get back together? Give me some time. I'll handle Isla, and then we'll get married. Okay. It was the first time she had ever heard him speak in such a pleading tone. She was stunned for a moment. It had to be said. Her heart ached fiercely, then quickly calmed down. She pulled her hand from his, sat on a nearby bench with her back to the sun, and said slowly, I gave you so much time. I had an album, one photo for each of our 5 years together. I was going to use it at our wedding. Then Caleb and Isla appeared. Every time you abandoned me and chose them, I deleted a photo. The last one was deleted when we broke up. I gave you so many chances, and every time, the price was my own pain. If you had chosen me just once, we wouldn't be where we are today. I'm too tired. Adrian, we're not right for each other. He walked over to her and slowly knelt, the pain in his eyes seeming to overflow. I'm sorry, Amelia. I didn't handle it well, but we were together for so many years. How could we not be right for each other? Please, don't leave me. This past month, I've thought about you every day. Just give me one more chance, please. He looked up at her, his eyes red-rimmed, looking incredibly fragile. Her heart clenched. Her breathing became unsteady. It was the first time she had ever seen him like this. Just as she was about to say something, a figure approached them. Isla's voice rang out. Not too close. Not too far. Adrian. And Miss Amelia. So this is where you are. I've been looking for you for so long. Adrian stood up, protectively shielding Amelia, his voice turning cold. What are you doing here? I've told you many times not to disturb me at work. If you keep this up, I'll contact your uncle. Her view was completely blocked. She couldn't see their expressions, but she didn't want to be caught between them. As she was about to leave, Isla suddenly rushed past Adrian and fell to her knees in front of Amelia with a thud. The action caught Amelia off guard. She stumbled back and sat down on the bench again. Adrian reacted quickly, trying to pull Isla up. What are you trying to do now? Get up. Isla's frail body resisted his pull. She suddenly burst into loud sobs, screaming at Amelia. Miss, I'm begging you, give Adrian back to me. I can't live without him. I'll die. Our child can't be without a father. Please. Isla's expression was manic, her voice hoarse, attracting the attention of everyone in the small garden. The veins on Adrian's forehead bulged. He was clearly furious. He stepped between them. They were already close, and as he stood there, his pants almost touched Isla's face. His brows were knitted tightly as he snapped. That's enough. Isla, I've told you countless times. We've been divorced for 8 years. Do you understand? 8 years. I have no feelings for you. Everything I've done for you lately has been out of a sense of moral obligation. Don't take advantage of my guilt over Caleb to hurt the people around me. Look at what you've turned Caleb into. Are you determined to drive everyone insane? Isla was stunned by his outburst, then collapsed on the ground, sobbing. Hospital security arrived. Adrian had them put Isla on a gurney. She struggled violently, and he ordered them to give her a sedative. Amelia worried if this was standard procedure. After the medical staff wheeled Isla away, Adrian sat down beside her, exhausted, and pinched the bridge of his nose. Isla was supposed to be in the psychiatric ward. She tends to wander off when she seems stable. Most of Caleb's illness is hereditary from her. I didn't know about the history of mental illness in her family back then. When we first got married, it wasn't severe, just a bad temper. But it got worse after she got pregnant with Caleb. I tried to convince her to terminate the pregnancy, but she and her parents refused. She nearly drove me mad during the pregnancy. Isla's parents watched me grow up. They couldn't bear to see me like that, so they agreed to the divorce. They've been raising Caleb. I asked them this time, and they said her recovery in the country was going well, so they let her come back. Who knew? Amelia didn't know how to comfort him. In the end, she just patted his shoulder, like a friend. I'll pretend I didn't hear what you said earlier. You're not in a position to be in a relationship right now. Whoever you're with will just be hurt by that mother and son. You should focus on how to handle this situation first. With that, she left without looking back once. She was afraid that if she looked back, her heart would ache. After all, this was a relationship she had invested 5 years in. But that was all it was. Tasteless to keep. A pity to discard. That night, she heard gossip about Adrian. After all these years, their social circles had some overlap. Adrian had been suspended for a month because of the scene Isla caused in the garden. The nurse who told her this was a friend of hers from Adrian's hospital. She sounded regretful, saying Isla had caused similar scenes many times before. Once, she saw Adrian working with a nurse and slapped the nurse, accusing her of seducing her husband. Another time, she burst in while he was doing his rounds, claiming their child was sick and demanding he go home with her. Adrian, who had once been well-liked and respected at the hospital, was now being undermined because of Isla. Amelia felt a pang of regret. She knew how much Adrian loved being a doctor. Isla really knew how to hit where it hurt, but she only thought about it for a moment. Her decision was final. To her surprise, she received a call from Adrian the next day. His voice sounded weak. Amelia, can you come with me? To the harbor. Please don't refuse. I'm just so tired. She heard a hint of desperation in his voice. After a few seconds of hesitation, she agreed. It was an old harbor, with few ships docked and even fewer people. When she arrived, he was already there, his figure looking lonely against the late winter sky. She walked up and stood beside him. He turned to look at her and handed her a cup of hot milk tea. She took it and thanked him. She expected him to vent his frustrations, but he barely expressed any negative emotions. He just chatted about everyday things, a smile on his face the whole time. But the exhaustion in his eyes was undeniable. Seeing him like this, she felt a little uneasy. After all, this was a man she had deeply loved. The atmosphere at dinner was pleasant. She also avoided sensitive topics, trying to keep the conversation light. But the pleasant mood was shattered as dinner was ending, because Caleb appeared at the restaurant entrance. Just like the first time, the moment she saw him, she stood up. The shadow this child cast over her was too deep. Adrian followed her gaze and turned. The moment he saw Caleb, his face darkened. He stood up, pulled Caleb to his side, and asked sternly, "Who brought you here? How did you find this place?" His hand holding Caleb's was trembling, the veins on his forehead bulging as he struggled to control his emotions. Caleb's eyes were fixed on Amelia. The stare sent a shiver down her spine. She unconsciously took a few steps back. Adrian turned Caleb's head, forcing him to make eye contact. "Tell me." Caleb was silent for a few seconds, then lowered his head, wringing his hands. "Mommy brought me. She saw it on her phone and brought me here." In an instant, both Adrian and Amelia realized that Isla must have installed a tracking device on him. Amelia found it absurd. Adrian closed his eyes tightly. When he opened them again, a flash of pain crossed his face. Caleb suddenly burst into tears. "Daddy, Are you really going to abandon mommy and me for this slut? Adrian's emotions finally exploded. He roared at Caleb, his eyes red. Don't you dare talk about her like that. Who taught you to be so disrespectful? All eyes in the restaurant turned to them. Amelia quickly apologized to the surrounding guests. Adrian calmed down and said to her apologetically, I'm sorry, Amelia. I'll take him home first. She nodded, watching him pick up Caleb and walk out. Caleb's eyes were still locked on her. Outside, Adrian said something to Caleb, and the boy pointed in a direction. A white car was parked on the side of the road. Adrian yanked open the door and put Caleb inside, but didn't get in himself. He walked to his own car and quickly drove away. The white car didn't follow but drove toward the restaurant. Amelia, sitting by the window, clearly saw Isla in the driver's seat, casting a venomous glare at her that sent a chill down her spine. She sat in the restaurant for a while before leaving. The looks from Isla and Caleb had unsettled her. Adrian had changed. The once confident, even arrogant man had become fragile. She could feel that he was desperately looking for support, on the verge of a breakdown. She was a little worried about him. Even if they weren't partners, she didn't want anything bad to happen to him. Ethan was busy with his thesis and was staying at the university. Amelia had been living alone lately, enjoying a rare period of solitude. After that dinner, Adrian hadn't contacted her. She was torn about whether to check in, but ultimately decided against it. She was afraid he would misunderstand, and afraid for her own safety. When Adrian contacted her again, her feelings were incredibly complex. She was at work when the property management called. Miss Amelia, it's Keith. Have you upset someone? Your front door has been splattered with paint, and there are a lot of nasty words written on it. You should come take a look. If you need to call the police, let us know. She was stunned. After telling her colleagues, she rushed home. Just as she opened her car door, her phone rang. It was Adrian. She got in the car and answered. Amelia, listen to me. I contacted Isla's family a while ago. They had her admitted to a secure facility. The hospital called me yesterday. She escaped. None of us know where she is. You need to be careful. Her mental state is extremely unstable. I'm afraid she'll hurt you. A wave of panic washed over her. Isla's venomous glare flashed in her mind again. She hesitated, then said, I think she's already found me. The property management just called and said my door was vandalized. There was a pause on his end. Then a long sigh. Call the police. Amelia, I'm afraid she'll hurt you. Her chest felt tight. She offered him a few words of reassurance, hung up, and drove home. As she approached her building, she saw a crowd of retirees gathered around her door, along with several security guards. She hurried over. The dark brown security door was covered in bright red paint. On the white wall next to it, words like slut and homewrecker die a horrible death were scrawled in red paint. The paint was still wet, dripping down the wall. An eerie sight. She took a photo and sent it to Adrian, then called the police. They arrived quickly, and the property management cooperated by checking the surveillance footage. Adrian rushed over. Although he had seen the photo, the sight of her front door in person made his pupils constrict. He looked at her, his face pale. I'm sorry you have to go through this. She looked at his ashen face and patted his shoulder. There's no point in saying that now. The most important thing is to find her. The surveillance footage clearly showed Isla's actions. A passerby had tried to stop her, but she had ignored them. But the cameras only captured her leaving the complex. She disappeared from view after that. Adrian was on the phone, his face grim. Just as Amelia stepped out of the security office, she saw Ethan running toward her, covered in sweat. His eyes lit up when he saw her. He rushed over, slightly out of breath. Amelia, are you okay? What happened at your door? It scared the life out of me. Did you call the police? His eyes were filled with nothing but tension and worry. She smiled at him and patted his arm reassuringly. I'm fine. I've already called the police. We'll talk when we get back. Just then, Adrian finished his call and walked toward them. Ethan saw him, and his face immediately soured. What's he doing here? She tugged on Ethan's sleeve and said to Adrian, You should go. Let me know if you hear anything. Adrian gave Ethan a complicated look, then nodded and left. Ethan and Amelia walked home together. On the way, she told him about Isla. His brow furrowed. You shouldn't stay there for a while. It's too dangerous. What if that woman tries something else? Stay at my place for now. I'll stay at the university at night. It's not far. She hesitated, then agreed. Isla was unpredictable. Staying at Ethan's was the safest option. 3 days passed. Adrian still hadn't found Isla. Amelia was on edge, constantly afraid Isla would pop out from some corner. Today, from the moment she woke up, she had a sense of foreboding. She was tense all day. Last night, Adrian had messaged her that Isla had taken Caleb, and they still couldn't find them. As she was leaving work, the moment she saw Caleb, her day-long anxiety seemed to have finally come to fruition. She didn't move forward, but stood still, looking at him. She called Adrian and told him Caleb was here. He said he would be there immediately and asked her to try to keep Caleb there. A lump formed in her throat. She was nervous. Every time she saw Caleb, her head would start to ache. And his hysterical crying. She hesitated, then walked toward him. She stopped about 6 feet away. She noticed he was trembling, a nervous expression on his face. She tried to keep her voice soft. Caleb, can you just stay here for a moment? Your dad will be here to get you soon. The word dad seemed to trigger him. He suddenly rushed at her, screaming, if you die, Daddy will come back. She was terrified by his reaction and took several steps back. Then she saw his raised hand. He was holding a gleaming fruit knife. With lightning speed, she grabbed the hand that was about to reach her face. It was rush hour, and many people were around. Several were scared by Caleb's actions, and a few quick-thinking ones ran over to help her restrain him. His wrist was caught by her, and his body was held by the others who had rushed over. He thrashed about, screaming, if you die, Daddy will come back. Why aren't you dead yet? She used her other hand to take the knife from him, looking at the still struggling boy with a complex expression. Suddenly, Adrian rushed up from behind, yanked Caleb away, and slapped him across the face. That's enough, he roared. I think you've really lost it. Caleb instantly fell silent. One of his cheeks quickly swelled up. He looked at Adrian in disbelief. Then his breathing suddenly became ragged, and his face turned deathly pale. Amelia was frightened and quickly grabbed Adrian. Quick, to the hospital. Caleb's body went limp. He was struggling to breathe, his fingers clutching at his chest. Adrian calmed down a little. Amelia helped call an ambulance. When it arrived, she didn't get in. Her own heart was still racing. After thanking the colleagues who had helped, she drove home. She hesitated, then went into Ethan's apartment. Exhausted, she collapsed on the sofa. Her phone rang. It was Adrian. Amelia, are you hurt? Caleb, he's stable now. I'm sorry. His voice sounded muffled, filled with deep guilt. I'm fine. I'm not hurt. Caleb, did his mother say something to him? He seemed really unwell. Adrian sighed heavily. I called his psychiatrist. The doctor said his mental state is very unstable due to Isla's influence. Once we find her, I'll consider sending him abroad again. After offering a few words of comfort, she hung up. She then received a series of messages from Ethan. It was a link to a video. A bystander had filmed the incident with her and Caleb. The caption was highly inflammatory. The person filming was close, and Caleb's words were crystal clear. The caption directly accused her of being a homewrecker who had driven the child to this state. Ethan must have been unable to reach her by phone. She quickly called him back. His voice was frantic. Amelia, what's this video? Are you hurt? Was it Adrian's son again? Is he insane? She reassured him, telling him not to worry, that she would handle the video. Public opinion was a journalist's specialty. The video didn't have much traction. She contacted the creator directly, formally informing them of the various laws they were breaking and of Caleb's situation. If they didn't issue an apology and a clarification, she would file a lawsuit. The creator replied quickly. They admitted someone had paid them to use that caption and sent her the chat logs. The creator deleted the video. She called Adrian. They both knew immediately it had to be Isla. Amelia reported it to the police. They tracked down the other people who had posted the video and traced the payment accounts, freezing them. If they didn't find Isla soon, Amelia felt she would go mad. The next day at work, the gossip about her had spread throughout the office. But after Isla's previous actions, everyone knew she was being harassed by a madwoman. This time, hearing that the child was Adrian's son, most people sympathized with her. What a terrible situation to be in. She didn't say much to her colleagues. It was, after all, Adrian's private matter, and it was wrong to gossip behind his back. As she left work, she scanned her surroundings nervously, afraid of another strange encounter. Then she saw Ethan smiling at her. She hurried over, thinking something was wrong. Why are you here? Did something happen? He took her laptop bag and shook his head. No, no. I just finished my thesis, so I have some free time. I came to pick you up. They haven't found that woman yet. Right. What if she ambushes you on your way home? She looked at his back as he walked ahead. The little boy who used to follow her around had grown into a reliable man. She went home with him. The mess at her door had been cleaned up long ago. A freshly painted white wall now starkly visible. Every time she saw it, a sense of dread washed over her, as if she could still see the bloody words underneath. As long as Isla wasn't found, her unease would grow. Adrian had messaged her that Caleb, after regaining consciousness, had confirmed that Isla had instigated his actions. After taking him from the hospital, Isla had brought him to a hotel and repeatedly told him that if he killed Amelia, his father would return to them. They could live happily ever after, never to be separated. Then she had dropped him off at Amelia's office. Isla must have been nearby when Caleb did it, but surveillance footage couldn't pinpoint her location. Amelia's feelings were complex. On one hand, she despised the mother and son. On the other, she felt sorry for Caleb. It wasn't hard to guess how he had been raised by Isla. At such a young age, he had been repeatedly pushed to the brink of his already unstable emotional state to achieve his mother's goals. A child at that age has no sense of right or wrong. He only knew what his mother told him to do, unconditionally accepting everything she instilled in him. Isla's parents were also actively searching and had expressed their apologies to Amelia through Adrian. Ethan was even more on edge than she was during this time. He bought her a bunch of self-defense gadgets, insisted on escorting her to and from work, and sent a constant stream of messages. It was both amusing and touching. Ethan was serious. I don't want to see you get hurt again. I'm terrified of seeing you lying in a hospital bed with your eyes closed. A warm feeling spread through her chest, calming some of her anxiety. The boy she had grown up with had become someone who could give her a sense of security. Caleb was kept at the hospital, with Isla's parents watching him 247, leaving no opportunity for Isla. Isla's payment accounts were also frozen. They were confident she would show up on her own in a few days. This brought Amelia some peace of mind, but no one expected that when Isla reappeared, it would be in this way. While Amelia was on an outdoor assignment, she received a call from an unknown man. Hello. Is this Miss Amelia? This is the Tianshui Road Police Department. Her heart leaped into her throat. She found a quiet corner. Yes, this is she. What is it? The background was noisy. There's a woman on the roof of the third hospital threatening to jump. She's demanding to see you before shell talk. Would you be able to come over? A thunderclap seemed to go off in her ears. Her voice trembled. Okay, I'm on my way. After hanging up, she told her colleagues what was happening, got in her car, and called Adrian. He was clearly on his way too, his voice tense and angry. He had obviously received the same call. The third hospital was where he worked. Isla's actions were clearly aimed at ending his career there. When she arrived, a large crowd had gathered below. Firefighters had already set up an air cushion. The building was new. It was over 10 stories high. Looking up, she could only see a tiny figure on the roof, which made her heart clench. She waited for a while before Adrian arrived, looking rushed. His hair was unkempt, and there was even a faint stubble around his lips. He ran over to her, glanced up, and then they went upstairs together without a word. The roof had a helipad, so it wasn't completely sealed off, just usually locked. Isla must have stolen the keys from the security office. As soon as they got up there, a police officer approached them, learning they were the ones Isla wanted to see. The officer had a complicated expression. Adrian explained Isla's mental condition in detail. The officer looked at them with a complex expression. If she has such a serious mental illness, her family should have been watching her more closely. How could you let her wander off like this? If she actually causes a fatality, it will be very difficult for us to handle. While Adrian was talking to the police, Amelia saw Isla sitting on the railing through the crowd. Her thin frame was wrapped in a bright red blanket. which billowed in the wind like a flag. Amelia decided in that instant that red would now be her most hated color. The police led them toward Isla. Someone shouted to Isla that the people she wanted to see were here. The wind on the roof was strong, stinging Amelia's face. Isla turned to look at them. Her hair was blown across her face, hiding her expression. Amelia couldn't help but take a few steps back. Isla stood up, swaying unsteadily. The movement drew a collective gasp from everyone on the roof. Adrian instinctively took a few steps forward, reaching out as if to grab her, but was stopped by her scream. Isla's face was revealed, pale and haggard, her eyes bloodshot with a hint of madness, fixed on Amelia. "It's all your fault. All your fault. Why aren't you dead yet?" Amelia was terrified by her appearance and couldn't stop trembling. Adrian's back was tense. Isla, calm down. Come down from there. Caleb is still waiting for you." Isla's screaming stopped. She looked at Adrian and smiled, then threw something at his feet. "Waiting for me? You don't even want Caleb anymore. Kill her and it'll come down." Everyone now saw that what she had thrown was a box cutter. Adrian's face was grim. He said nothing, his lips pressed together. Then he saw a firefighter climbing up from the side of the railing. The firefighter gestured to him. Adrian reacted quickly, trying to distract Isla. "Calm down. Isla, you're in a very dangerous position. Can you come over here a little? Let's talk properly." Isla's agitated state was not calmed. She continued to scream at him. "Pick it up. I told you to pick it up. Kill her." Adrian slowly bent down to pick up the box cutter, his eyes never leaving Isla. Amelia was also tense. She tried to keep her gaze on Isla, to not look at the firefighter getting closer behind her. Seeing Adrian pick up the box cutter, Isla burst into laughter, repeating, "Ha ha, kill her, kill her." The firefighter, who had finally reached the platform, suddenly lunged forward and tackled Isla to the ground. Everyone else rushed over to help. Amelia watched as Isla was pinned down, finally letting out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Her back was covered in a cold sweat, and her legs felt weak. Adrian's shoulders slumped in relief. He had already called for paramedics. They strapped the still struggling Isla to a gurney. After giving her a sedative, she finally quieted down. At the same time, Adrian suddenly turned and hugged Amelia, his body still trembling. His voice also trembled. "Amelia, I'm sorry. Amelia, who had been about to push him away, let her hands fall. She hesitantly patted his back. "It's over." Then she felt an intense stare. Turning her head slightly, she met Isla's eyes. She was lying on the gurney, her head turned to look at Amelia, the bloodshot veins in her eyes looking like they would burst, and her gaze filled with an undisguisable venom. After Isla was taken away, Amelia and Adrian were taken to the police station to give their statements. Leaving the station, Adrian stood before her, hesitant. "Amelia, I'm so sorry for everything. I won't pressure you for an answer anymore. I still love you. I still hope you'll give me another chance, but I will accept your choice. My rash decisions in the past created this mess and made you suffer so much. I'm sorry. I hope you can be happy." His eyes were a little red. He wiped his face and forced a smile. "I want to see you home. There's still a lot to deal with over there." She nodded and watched him leave, his back exuding a profound loneliness. Her heart still felt a little sore. She took a deep breath. It was finally over. The heavy weight on her heart could finally be lifted. When she got home, Ethan was waiting anxiously. The incident with Isla had been posted online by many people, and he had seen it. He had been so worried he had called her over a dozen times, but she had been on the roof and hadn't been able to answer. As soon as she walked in, Ethan pulled her into a tight hug, resting his forehead on her shoulder, his voice muffled. "Amelia, please don't see Adrian again. Every time you see him, you get hurt. It breaks my heart. I'm so scared." She was stunned for a moment. The warmth from his shoulder seemed to seep into her heart, warm and unsettling to her heartbeat. Ethan didn't really expect an answer. He soon lifted his head and started pulling out a pile of things he had bought for her. A video doorbell, all kinds of cameras. He explained each one to her and helped her install them. After Isla was taken away by the hospital, Amelia moved back to her own place. With all the cameras, she felt much safer. Lying in bed that night, She made a silent decision. She couldn't treat Ethan like a child anymore. His feelings for her were serious, and she should treat them seriously. Continuing to avoid it would only hurt him. Her life returned to normal. Adrian would periodically update her on what was happening. Isla's condition was very unstable. She wasn't fit for a long flight, so they had to observe her in the country first. Once she was stable, they would take her and Caleb abroad together. Amelia chatted with him casually. Adrian was indeed planning to switch hospitals. It was also what the management at the third hospital wanted. She still felt a little sad about it. He had been at the third hospital for so long. Now, he would have to start over at a new place. But the best part was that neither of them had suffered any permanent harm. Life seemed to be back on track. As Ethan's birthday approached, she spent a long time choosing a gift for him. On his birthday, she cooked a big meal for him at home. He was so happy when he came home. A blissful, silly smile on his face the whole time. Watching him, she couldn't help but smile too. When it was time to blow out the candles, he clasped his hands together and piously made his wish. I hope Amelia will say yes to my confession in a little while. Her face suddenly flushed, and a hint of sweetness filled her heart. She had to admit, she wasn't completely immune to him. She was just scared. Her last relationship, which could only be described as a failure, had left a deep scar. She had invested so many years of her time, energy, and emotions, only to end up with a tragic result. So when another relationship was presented to her, she was hesitant to reach out. When Ethan opened his eyes again, the candlelight danced in his dark pupils, filled with a deep love. She felt as if she had been burned by that love. When she came to her senses, he was holding her hand. Then he blew out the candles, and they were plunged into darkness. His voice came from the dark. Amelia, I've liked you for so many years. I don't know when it started, but whenever you're around, you're all I can see. I was too scared to confess. I could tell you only saw me as family. Then you got with Adrian, and I was so jealous. And seeing you get hurt by him over and over again, I hated myself for being so useless. I couldn't even protect the person I love. Amelia, I know it's not easy for you to start a new relationship right now. I'll wait for you. I've waited so many years. I just hope you won't push me away anymore. Okay. She could feel the tremble in the hand holding hers. In the dark room, she couldn't see his expression. Her heart was beating fast. She was also nervous. Taking a deep breath, she squeezed his hand. Okay, that one word was enough. She was pulled into a warm embrace. A smile touched her lips. This embrace was warm. Maybe she should be braver. Adrian still messaged her occasionally, but he was always respectful of their boundaries. Over the weekend, he messaged her that Isla's condition had stabilized, and arrangements had been made at a hospital abroad. He was planning to fly with Isla and Caleb the next day. This time, both his and Isla's parents would go with them to get everything settled before returning. Amelia let out a heavy sigh. Was this finally coming to an end? The weather was beautiful today, the sun warming the air. She and Ethan were planning to go out. While they were having lunch, she suddenly got a call from Adrian. Ethan saw the caller ID and looked a little unhappy. She smiled and patted his head, then answered the phone. Adrian's voice was frantic. Amelia. Isla said she was going to the bathroom and then drove off. Listen to me. Go home right now, or find a hotel to stay in until we find her. Ethan saw the sudden change in her expression and unconsciously tightened his grip on her hand. She hung up, grabbed Ethan's hand, and they prepared to leave. On the way, she explained the situation. They decided to go straight home. It was impossible to know how long it would take to find Isla. Last time it took over a week. They couldn't just stay in a hotel. Ethan was driving. Also tense. There are so many of them. How can they not keep an eye on one woman? They let her escape once, and now they've let her escape again. He was genuinely angry, muttering about Adrian's incompetence. Amelia was also panicked. What Isla had done last time was already extreme. She didn't know what she would do this time. Her heart pounded in her chest. The drive home seemed to take forever. The atmosphere in the car was tense. A thin layer of sweat even broke out on Ethan's forehead. They finally made it home. He parked the car downstairs and led her quickly toward the building entrance. Suddenly, a screeching sound came from behind them. They both turned around. A car was speeding toward them, not avoiding the people on the road. causing a series of screams. Amelia quickly realized the driver was Isla. The car was hurtling toward them. Ethan realized it too. He pulled her and ran toward the building entrance, their palms slick with sweat. They were still a few hundred yards from the entrance. The white car was getting closer. Amelia could smell the strong scent of gasoline. All she could hear was her own heartbeat. In the end, they couldn't outrun the car. With about 100 yards to go, the car was right upon them. She could almost see the smirk on Isla's face. But just as the car was about to hit them, Ethan used all his strength to push her away. She managed to pull him with her slightly. Then there was a loud crash as the car hit the wall. The sound deafened her for a moment, her head ringing. She scrambled up from the ground and saw Ethan lying a little further back. Her mind went blank. She crawled over and knelt beside him. She could clearly see that one of his legs was trapped between the car and the wall. Bright red blood stained the wall. She was terrified. The fear of something happening to him overwhelmed her panic. A crowd gathered, some calling the police, some calling for an ambulance. She didn't dare move him. She could only kneel there, calling his name over and over. But there was no response. She didn't know how much time had passed. The sound of an ambulance grew closer. Paramedics arrived and pulled her away. Then, with the help of the firefighters and police who had arrived, they freed his leg. The car had started to smoke heavily. Through the smoke, she saw the paramedics lift Ethan onto a stretcher and also pull the blood-soaked Isla from the car. In a daze, she watched as Ethan's stretcher was loaded into the ambulance. She got in with him. He was lying there, his face dirty, an oxygen mask on. Looking at his closed eyes, she finally understood what he had meant when he said he was terrified of seeing her lying there with her eyes closed. So this is what it felt like. She took his hand. The warmth from it calmed her a little. At the hospital, she had mostly recovered her composure. She had her own minor injuries treated and underwent a basic examination. Other than some scrapes from the debris, she was unharmed. Then she sat outside Ethan's operating room. The paramedics had told her he had a comminuted fracture in one leg and needed immediate surgery. She sat outside the operating room, the metal bench cold to the touch. In that moment, she longed for the warmth of his hand. A rush of footsteps approached. She mechanically looked up. It was Adrian. His eyes were red. The panic on his face was obvious. He seemed to be relieved when he saw her, then turned to look at the lit-up operating room sign. His clenched fists were white-knuckled. He sat down beside her, not daring to look her in the eye. "Ethan, how is he?" She knew it wasn't his fault, but he was undeniably connected to it. She suppressed all her emotions. "He's not in life-threatening danger. Comminuted fracture in his leg. He's in surgery now." His head sank lower. His voice choked. "I'm sorry, Isla, she didn't make it. They couldn't save her." Hearing this, Amelia's body jolted. She looked at him in disbelief. How much must Isla have hated her to resort to such a self-destructive act of revenge? She felt as if she had been plunged into an icy abyss, her teeth chattering. Adrian looked up, his gaze fixed on her. "I'm going to take Caleb and leave. I probably won't be back. It was all my selfishness, thinking I could balance everything. It only brought you so much pain. It's all my fault. Amelia, I hope you can be happy." A single tear finally escaped his red-rimmed eyes. Her own nose started to sting. She leaned over and hugged him, like a friend. Then she said softly, "It's not your fault, Adrian. You two weren't right for each other." Her obsession was too strong. "We weren't right for each other either. Neither of us could let go. You're a good person, a good father, and a good doctor. When Caleb sees a psychiatrist, you need to take care of yourself too. Don't be so hard on yourself." Adrian left. Before he did, he left a large sum of money for Ethan's medical bills and compensation. Ethan's surgery was a success. The first person he saw when he opened his eyes was Amelia. Seeing her red, swollen eyes, he gently touched them. When he learned of Isla's death, his expression was also grim. It was a life, after all, gone just like that. The news that Adrian was taking Caleb to live abroad, however, made him very happy. He ate the food she had made for him with a sweet smile. Ethan and Amelia were officially together. The moment she saw him lying on the ground, she knew her heart. His leg injury was severe and would take a long time to heal. It was as if their roles had reversed. She would drive him to and from the university every day. She took care of his meals and daily needs. Although she had been the caregiver in her relationship with Adrian too, it felt completely different. Adrian had taken her care for granted, occasionally offering a polite thank you or you must be tired. Ethan was completely different. Every time she did something for him, he would express 100% gratitude and joy, as if she had done something incredible. This experience made her feel truly loved. This relationship gave her strength, instead of just draining her. 6 months later, Ethan could walk again. Although he always seemed happy, she knew the pain he went through during his physical therapy. The bloody crescent marks from his nails and his palms took a long time to fade. On their 1-year anniversary, he proposed. She was a little surprised. She thought it was too soon. He pouted unhappily, saying they had known each other for over 20 years. How could it be too soon? She smiled and let him put the ring on her finger. Adrian still messaged her occasionally, asking how she was, telling her about his own life. Every time Ethan saw it, he would sarcastically say Adrian hadn't given up. On her birthday, Adrian suddenly asked her to meet him at the harbor that night, saying he had a gift for her. Ethan drove her there, grumbling the whole way, but he was just talking. They both knew that she and Adrian could never go back. A life stood between them, a chasm that could never be crossed. When she arrived, Adrian called. Suddenly, the sky lit up with dozens of drones, changing formations, spelling out her name, "Happy birthday," and then creating images of fireworks and a birthday cake. It was dazzling against the dark night sky. Adrian's voice came through the phone. "I remember you telling me about a colleague whose boyfriend proposed with a drone show. I could see how much you envied her. I'm sorry I couldn't give you anything back then. Now, all I can offer are birthday wishes." Before she could reply, Ethan leaned into the phone and shouted, "Thanks for the show, Dr. Cole. It was beautiful. I've already proposed to Amelia, and she said yes. You have to come to our wedding." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Adrian's voice, seeming to come from far away, said, "Congratulations. I'll be there." Amelia pushed Ethan away, who was still leaning in, and seriously thanked Adrian. Then she hung up and looked at the now dark sky. She didn't envy anyone anymore. She held up her hand. The ring on her middle finger shone like a star in her eyes. On their wedding day, Adrian really did show up. He was holding Caleb's hand. They walked toward Amelia and Ethan, who were standing at the entrance. Caleb had grown a little. He looked more like a young boy, his eyes much clearer. He blushed when he saw her and tried to hide behind Adrian. Adrian pulled him forward. Caleb stood before her, bowed deeply, and said with a slight stutter, "I'm sorry, Auntie Amelia. I did a lot of wrong things before. I know they were wrong now. I've changed." She smiled and patted the boy's head. Adrian stepped forward and smiled at them. "Congratulations on your wedding. You look beautiful today." He was much thinner, but the despair in his eyes was finally gone. He seemed to have become that refined Dr. Cole again. Ethan held her hand tightly. She looked at him, amused. "Why are you holding on so tight? Are you still afraid I'll run off after all this time?" He seemed to get even more nervous, pulling her backstage and hugging her tightly. "Seeing him makes me nervous. You have no idea how many nightmares I've had of you leaving me for him." Her eyes sparkled, feeling his immense love. As she walked down the aisle, she looked at the red-rimmed eyes of Ethan and saw her own reflection in his bright pupils. And in her eyes was the shining image of him. The distance between them was closing, and they would finally rely on each other. This forest, nurtured by love, had finally welcomed its returning bird.